If you've seen my videos before, you may know I film weddings solo. One of the biggest questions I often asked is how to film a wedding ceremony solo. So in this video, I'm going to give you my template and break down how I film wedding ceremonies using 2, 3, and 4 cameras solo. I think there's a lot of people in that 2 to 4 camera range, so hopefully this will be helpful. Guys, I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs, so if you're enjoying my videos so far and haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so and hit the like button so we can help more people in their videography journey by helping them find this video. Okay, let's talk about gear. This is just what I use, but obviously you can use whatever suits you best. Starting off with my main camera, I use a Rokinon 85mm lens attached to a Sony A7 III. Yes, my lens is completely manual, and yes, the A7 III is a couple years old, but remember, the best camera you have is the one in your hands. I also use a Siryu monopod with a Manfrotto 500 video head. I've been in love with this monopod ever since I saw Craig Adams use one like 5 years ago, and what I love about this monopod is the feed. It's awesome because the feed allows it to be used as a makeshift tripod. To monitor my footage, I use the Atomos Ninja 5 monitor, and like I said, this would be my A-cam, main cam setup, and I'm on this setup for 90% of my wedding day, and it works for me. I'm not against gimbals or anything. I do use a gimbal, but sparingly. I just prefer shots I get from an 85mm lens on a monopod. Now I use 3 more cameras for a total of 4. Those 3 cameras are all Sony a6400s, and I pair them with 2 85 prime lenses, then the other with either a 16mm prime or a 9mm prime. Keep in mind, these are APS-C cameras, so you've got to take whatever focal length your lens is and times it by a 1.5 to get the true focal length. My 3 6400s then go on these Siryu carbon fiber tripods, and together they make a compact, lightweight combo that isn't so cumbersome for me to move around when and if I need to. I don't care about having the biggest, most expensive tripod. I care about stealth and being able to get the shot without any hindrance. Lastly, I have my audio gear, which consists of 3 Tascam DR10Ls, 1 Sony TX660, the Rode Wireless Go 2 dual transmitter kit, and a Zoom H5 to get a feed from a soundboard, if there is one. If I'm shooting in a church and there's a soundboard with easy access to plug into, then that's fantastic. But I'm not gonna be holding my breath looking for one because it's probably locked far away, and people who work at the church usually are in no mood to help me reach it because they don't understand what I'm asking. So I usually just end up miking everything that I possibly can. I use the Sony TX660 for the officiant, a Tascam DR10L gaff tape to the podiums, another DR10L for the bride, another one for the groom, and a Rode Wireless Go 2 transmitter slipped on any microphone using this sleeve found on Etsy. Listen to this.
There is quite a tradition in marriages of the bouquet and
Oh, so many things, the old and the new and the borrowed and the blue. And the wedding poem has a very long tradition that goes all the way back to the Greeks.
I think that sounds pretty good. I know the new DJI mic is the popular thing, but as I'm making this video, it's pretty much sold out everywhere, and honestly, when has Rode ever failed you when it comes to audio gear? This is like what they do. The Rode Wireless Go 2 will not disappoint you, and it now comes in a single transmitter package, but honestly, I would just get the dual transmitter package if you film weddings. I'll link these products down below in the description. Alright, so leading off is the 2 camera setup. If you're brand new, this is the most common starting point. I did this for the first 2 years in the wedding game, and it taught me how to introduce additional cameras as opposed to having a bunch of cameras and not knowing where to strategically put them. So no matter how many cameras I eventually use, I always start the ceremony rolling with just 2. A monopod camera with an 85 prime lens, and a tripod camera with a wide angle lens. I'll take both cameras with me and station myself in front of the aisle, off to the left or the right. I face my wide angle camera to the altar and face my monopod camera down the aisle. This way, I get some depth to that shot because you can use the guest as foreground and then you can focus in on the processions while everyone's walking down the aisle. When the bride first becomes visible, I'll quickly pan my monopod camera in the direction of the groom to capture his reaction, then I'll flip back to the bride. When we're about 4 to 5 seconds away from the handoff, I'll take both cameras and move away from the aisle to capture the handoff from a distance using my monopod camera. Now, right after the handoff, most officiants will give everyone about 30 seconds to a minute to get situated and seated before they start, officiating the ceremony. Unless you're Sonic the Hedgehog, this obviously isn't enough time to set your cameras all in the place you want to while shooting solo. What I do is make sure my wide angle camera, which is also called my safe camera, is placed in a spot that captures the entire ceremony as it happens. The monopod camera is placed near the couple, and this gives me a close-up shot, and coupled with my wide shot, I now have 2 solid angles that should be more than enough to use in a 5-minute highlight film. In this example, I placed this camera behind the guests, as high as I could on a tripod, and pointed it towards the altar. This achieves the overall goal, but this was earlier in my career, and if I could redo the ceremony, I'd probably place it as close to me as possible because you don't want to be walking very far to check on your cameras since, you're shooting solo. Now, a 3-camera setup is where I began to offer full ceremony edits as an add-on or to strengthen the value of an existing package. That 3rd camera introduces a layer of flexibility when in post, and I think it's the most manageable setup for a solo shooter. After following the same 2-camera method during the procession, the moment people begin to get situated and seated, I'll use that time to set up my wide angle safe cam, and then I'll set up a bride cam. That camera is placed on the right side facing the bride, and I'm looking for a close-up shot of her. The 3rd camera in this scenario is my monopod camera, and I'm floating around with it, capturing guest reactions, and eventually when the groom says his vows. Finally, a 4-camera setup is what I currently use, and simply put, it's a wide angle in front of the couple, a dedicated bride cam, a dedicated groom cam, and then the monopod cam. And again, I'm floating around with, exclusively this time, getting crowd reactions. Now, with more cameras you introduce, you're obviously gonna have to monitor each and every single one of them. I like my 6400s because they're small, have an unlimited record time, and the battery life is pretty good, even shooting in 4K. Other than that, you're gonna have to figure out what aperture, ISO, and white balance is best for your shooting situation. If I'm shooting inside, then there's very little I need to fiddle around with. But if I'm shooting outside, the lighting becomes sporadic. On a bright sunny day, I'll set my white balance to 6,000 Kelvin. But if the sky goes overcast, I'm obviously going to have to make an adjustment. Another thing to consider is climate. I wasn't going to bring this up, but if you live in a hot climate like Florida, California, you should think about getting a camera with the least overheating issues. The Sony a7S III, the a7 IV, and the FX3 have seemed to completely solve overheating issues, and you might want to opt for one of those cameras instead. With that being said, I've only had my cameras that I've mentioned I use overheat once, and it just so happened to be the hottest day of the year. I like filming with my apertures wide open and then cutting light if I have to with variable ND filters. The only camera that I stop down my aperture on is my wide angle camera because I want the image to be, as sharp as possible since it is my safe cam. Also, try to keep your clips running as long as possible. This will save you time in post as it'll be easier on your editing software to process longer clips rather than a bunch of short 5-10 second clips. At the most, break your clips into 10-minute intervals for safety. If you're in the middle of recording and your camera gets, God forbid, knocked over or something, you're at risk of that file being corrupted. But it'll only be that one file that's less than 10 minutes. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience here. Finally, before the ceremony is over, I'll move to the top of the aisle with my monopod camera and wait for the bride and groom to exit the altar. And that's it. So hopefully that was helpful, and if it was, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any lingering questions, let me know in the comments down below. I also want to acknowledge that, there are plenty of other types of wedding ceremonies out there. The world is filled with different customs and cultures. You got South Asian weddings, you got African weddings. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I fully intend on covering those in future videos. But for now, let me know what type of videos you guys want to see. Do you want more tutorials? Do you want gear reviews? Or maybe something business related? You guys gotta let me know. But for right now, I got some other videos for you to watch, and you can check them out by clicking over here, or here, or here. I think here.